Joe here. I'm in the state of Jalisco, camped out next to this lake back there. There's an active volcano over that way. So I wanted to make this video to kind of go over some frequently asked questions, things I tend to get asked pretty frequently, and also explain a little bit of my backstory. So hopefully with this video I can sort of cover some of the common questions that a lot of people have. If you enjoy this video, please hit like and subscribe. As well, I've included an optional donate link in the drop box if you'd like to contribute to this project. Otherwise, let's get into it. So one of the things that I get asked pretty frequently is about my choice of motorcycle. Why did I choose this motorcycle to do what I do, which is specifically traveling through Mexico and the United States? Well, after almost 3 years on the road, I needed something that was going to have sufficient power, do good at altitude, have good storage capacity that I could carry all of my stuff. I mean, basically 90% of my stuff is what you see here. My entire life's basically on the motorcycle, so I needed something with enough sort of storage capability that I could cart all this stuff around with me easily, and also something that would have decent enough power to carry all that stuff and get me around, because I do tend to do a lot of highway riding when I'm going back to the US to work. I needed something that would get me there as quickly and comfortably as possible. When I first started around 3 years ago, I started out on a Kawasaki Ninja 300, which you may have seen if you'd followed any of my posts on Instagram and whatnot. I lived on the Ninja 300 for around a year and rode it all the way to Guatemala and Belize. I bought a machete down there. I was chopping through the jungle, chopping out campsites and stuff. It was pretty crazy. And while it was a great bike because it was lightweight and was easy to maneuver in traffic, it was absolute hell on the highway. I needed something different. So when I got back to the States after that excursion, I was on a 1986 BMW Airhead, which was a fantastic bike. I mean, had power for days, top end power, you know, incredible bike, but it was an 86. It had all the problems of an 86. Ultimately, I traded that for a Kawasaki KLR 650, which I then took through Baja over to the mainland of Mexico. I had to ride from the west coast of Mexico to Florida for work right when they were having the big cold front rolling through Texas. So I was basically stuck in Mexico in 20-degree weather. So I lost a week of traveling time. So I then had to haul ass to Florida for work. And by the time I got there, I was just completely deflated. I mean, I never got a chance to recover. And I realized at that point I was going to need to find something a little more comfortable to handle this situation. The KLR was good because the off-road capability was decent. It was easy to whip it around in traffic, except for the giant panniers that I had on the side. Frankly, at the end of the day, I just needed something that would be a little more comfortable for long distances. And so I ended up with this ST 1300, 4-cylinder, puts out something like 117 horsepower. It's got good torque. It's fuel injected, so I don't experience, you know, bogging down at altitude. It does fine. But this has worked pretty well, and it actually does pretty well off-road, surprisingly. It's a heavy fucking bike, and it's really top heavy. So it's not the greatest, but it's generally, for a bike of this size, it's very stable off-road. Generally, I've been very surprised. So I'll probably stick with this for a little while. A lot of people have asked, why don't I ride an adventure bike? Well, the reason I don't ride an adventure bike is specifically because I want something that's going to be as comfortable on the highway, because I do find myself doing long distances quickly. And that's the reason that sort of negates the adventure bike. And I want to be as comfortable as possible on the highways. There have been situations when I've been doing some off-roading and I just can't take this bike down the road, and I look at it and it's like, you know, yeah, if I had an adventure bike, this would be no problem. But ultimately, this thing's very capable off-road, and maybe at some point in the future I will get an adventure bike. You know, we'll see. I'm hearing very good things about the BMW GSs, hearing good things about the Pan America from Harley Davidson. This bike is generally all around, pretty much does everything I need, which is carry all of my stuff, have good power, be able to handle altitude changes easily, and be very comfortable for long distances. So that's that. Okay, so another common question that I get asked pretty frequently is, how do you support yourself? How are you able to do this? Do you have some kind of a trust fund set up? And the answer is no, I don't have any sort of a trust fund or any other kind of magical source of disposable income. Frankly, I think that if I did, I would probably lose interest in doing this and my life would look a lot different. I've never really seen too many independently wealthy people come out and try to hit the road and really last. You can take that for what it is. I don't know why. But they don't tend to last as long out here. There's something to be said for adversity and for having to settle with places like this, which are absolutely free. When I first hit the road, I had about $2,000 on me. That $2,000 went really quick. And so I had to scramble and really figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? What am I going to eat? How am I going to sleep? And how am I going to save money so that I can stay out here? Since I had sort of gotten the expenses down to about $100, $120 a week. That includes food, gas, and any other expenses. And that's pretty average. It tends to be a little bit more when I'm en route. Certainly in Mexico, I'll break down and get a hotel in the north of Mexico. In the south, it's a little different. It's a little more laid back. But so I work motorcycle rallies. I'm an installer for a company called Memphis Shades, one of the top companies in the motorcycle fairing and windshield business. And I've been with them for a couple of 2 or 3 years almost now. I worked my way up from the bottom of the motorcycle rally thing, doing setup and tear down, where you're basically like pitching the big tents that they set up out there, just absolutely at the bottom of the totem pole. After doing this for a while, I began to learn that the people that work the rally scene were a very tight-knit group of people. And if you're doing a bad job, word gets around. And if you're doing a good job, word gets around too. So after working half a dozen of these rallies, I developed enough of a reputation. My boss at Memphis Shades was able to sort of ask a bunch of people and get a better idea. What's this guy like? What's he all about? What sort of a job does he do? Should I hire him? Fortunately for me, the answer was a resounding yes from everybody that he asked. So I was able to land a very good job with my company, Memphis Shades, who I'm very happy working for. With my channel, I'm able to make a little bit of revenue from the advertising, doing the videos, money from donations. It's pretty much enough to sort of break even at the end of the day, which is just as long as I can stay out here and continue to learn about the culture of wherever I'm at and learn more about the natural world. So this gives me a chance to just sort of stay out here and learn. But certainly in the beginning, I had to really learn a lot of skills as far as money management went. So that's that. No sort of a trust fund or any other sort of magical disposable source of income. How did I end up doing what I'm doing right now? I hit the road in April of 2019. And previous to this, I had some friends who were in the motorcycle travel community, one of which is Scooter Tramp Scotty. A lot of you guys are familiar with him. He's got a very popular YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out yet, he's got some excellent content. Scooter Tramp Scotty, check it out. I met him in circumstances that weren't even remotely related to motorcycle travel in Myrtle Beach when I was on vacation. And we quickly became good friends without really even being interested in hitting the road at all. Just in conversation with him, I was able to pick up a lot of things that were later to help me quite a bit when I did hit the road. And a lot of things I sort of knew instinctively just from our conversations, things what to do, what not to do, just in passing, things that were just mentioned in passing. So I started taking these little missions, these little weekend missions where I would go out and look at a map, find a town that I'd never been, go out, ride all day, get there, look for a place to camp, and be freaked out of my mind. And then I'd do it again the following weekend. And I did that so many times for like an entire summer. And then I'd take little longer missions. I'd ask for a couple days off of work. And then I'd take like a week and I'd be freaked out of my damn mind. I'm in this new place. It's crazy. Just as a result of doing that, by the time I finally hit the road, I was already sort of prepared and I sort of knew a lot of things. I'd had practice looking for places to camp. I was sort of unhappy back home because the winters are really cold and I have a tendency to get seasonal depression. So I had a really rough winter where there was a lot of ice and snow. And so I wasn't able to ride. And typically riding for me is very much like my therapy, like my meditation. I find that when I do it, it's almost a spiritual practice that's necessary to sort of maintain my sense of well-being. I had a particularly hard winter, and I'm talking to my friend Scotty about it. And he's saying, well, yeah, you ever think about coming down to Florida and working a rally? So long story short, I give my boss like 2 months notice before I leave. I start packing up everything. And so I'm just going to go down to Florida to work a rally. I never intended to hit the road full time. I was never looking at the long term. I was just looking at the short term, that it was cold. I couldn't ride back home. I wait patiently for a break in weather. So I go down there, and I get sort of introduced to this life and learn, you know, some of the sort of finer points of doing it. I get to interact with some people like Chip Parisi, who's got a great Facebook blog, The Great American Road Chip, and people like Mike McCone, who have a little Chihuahua that he carries with him on his gas tank. So I got introduced to this sort of vagabundo community. Joe Sparrow, another famous one who's been living on his bike for quite a number of years. So all of a sudden I'm interacting with these people in real time, and their enthusiasm was infectious. I felt really lucky to be interacting with so much knowledge that eventually I sort of said, yeah, this might be something I think I could do. I really enjoy being out here. This is fun. I worked another rally in Myrtle Beach, made a little bit more money, hung out in Nashville for a while. I'm traveling with Scotty. I'm kind of taking notes on everything he's doing. And so I go back home, and it was like my mind was already set. Like, I'm hitting the road. I'm doing this. You know, I'm fucking doing this. I give all of my furniture away, get rid of my apartment, and sort of say goodbye. Fortunately, I was situated in such a way that, you know, I didn't have any kids or any sort of social responsibilities back home. So it sort of made sense. It was kind of a why not kind of a moment. I met back up with Scooter Tramp Scotty. We rode out to Sturgis. My grandmother passed away. She was the person I was the closest to in my life. From that moment forward, it was almost a little bit too painful to go back. To come back to the question of why am I out here and why am I doing this? I enjoy it. I enjoy riding a motorcycle. I enjoy camping. I enjoy the entire lifestyle. And in particular, I enjoy riding through foreign countries and learning the language, interacting, learning about the culture and the food and the customs and things like that. One person who was a big influence actually on me early on was my grandfather, who was a big international traveler. He was always had a trip planned to either South America or Mexico, you know, or Alaska. And so he took me on a couple of trips when I was still in high school to Alaska and Bolivia, which is a little country in the middle of South America. And we were sleeping in hammocks in the jungle. And it was so exotic. And I'm hearing all this language I don't understand. And I remember being on the plane on the way back to the United States thinking, like, I didn't even scratch the surface of what this place was all about. Like, I haven't seen shit. Like, there's still so much I want to see. And so, you know, I knew at that point that I was going to try to get back to Latin America. I didn't know when it would be. As it turned out, it was a little later down the road. But that's kind of a long story. But so I credit my grandfather for giving me that. As far as my interest in motorcycles, that's all my dad. That's all my father. My father was a biker and a hippie from back in the day, was one of the best mechanics I've ever known. I didn't have a lot of natural mechanical ability when I was growing up, but certainly there are things that I learned from my dad that are just so ingrained in my head. You know, to me, that time with my dad, learning about that type of stuff was just so valuable. And so that's where I credit my interest in motorcycles. Okay, so another frequently asked question is, how did I learn Spanish? Well, it's kind of an interesting question because in my mind, I suck at Spanish. For the average person who's like maybe just picking up, like, I speak pretty well and I tend to understand the majority of what's going on. Almost all situations I can make myself understood, but I'm absolutely still learning the language. I'm absolutely still working on vocabulary and structure and conjugations and things like that. I started learning in earnest after my first trip to Mexico. Picked up a book by Barbara Bergstein, and I'm not making any money off of this. I'm just throwing it out there as a reference. She's got a book called Complete Spanish Step by Step. This sort of goes over all the grammar and sort of breaks it down in a very sort of like mechanical, grammatically based approach. This is one of her books right here, Advanced Spanish Step by Step. I'm about 100 pages into it. This is the 4th book on Spanish that I've gone through. So these are good, but if you do pick up one of these books, be aware they're not the easiest thing in the world. There's a lot of trick questions, so you're going to make mistakes. Fortunately, the answer key is in the back, so you can go back, make mistakes, go back, figure out the right answer, which is more often than not the case. If you look at my book, it's pretty, I make a lot of mistakes. But so that's the 4th book I've gone through. There's a book called Madrigal's Magic Key to Spanish. That's the book I would recommend to anybody starting out for the first time, because it's so concise, it's so easy, it breaks it down in such a beautiful way. And the book has been around, I think, since the 1920s. Just absolutely fantastic book. It's about that thick, but if you commit yourself to a daily practice, which I did, I'm going to pick up that book. I'm going to work for at least 20-30 minutes on it. There are times when it's just, you know, you need a break, you need a day off, whatever. But certainly, even to this day, after like nearly 2 years, I'm still committed to a daily practice. There's an app called Duolingo, which is also very good. One of the most useful things is actually watching movies in Spanish, because you get to pick up the context of a lot of the words that you've heard, people using them. You can focus on the pronunciation. Listening to Spanish language music, I've got entire playlists, all of banda music from the Banda MS, and all kinds of different stuff like that. I like a rap group called Cartel de Santa, which is from Monterrey. But just all of these things and committing yourself to a daily practice. I'm not crazy about sitting down and working out of a book, learning a bunch of verbs and nouns and stuff. Like, it's not my idea of a good time, okay? There are people that are proficient at that and really enjoy that sort of approach to learning. Not me. The only thing I did was force myself to do it anyway. Day after day after day after day, to pick up the book, pick up the app, go out and practice my Spanish and talk to people and make conversation when I'm in Mexico. And as a result of doing that, I found that I learned and picked up a lot of the basics pretty quick. So. A lot of people ask questions about hitting the road for the first time, what to do, what not to do. So lastly, what advice do I have to somebody who's thinking about hitting the road or maybe wants to try to live in this way? The first thing I would advise for anybody is the same thing I did in the beginning, which was just take little trips. Take a trip on the weekend, ride for a day, ride out somewhere you'd never been before, find a place to camp. Find a free place to camp. Look for a stealth camping spot. Go downtown, see what's going on, and do these little practice runs. I did lots of these practice runs. Explore a new town that I hadn't been to yet, find a place to camp, and then go back the next day. And it was just so much fun because I could kind of live, you know, sort of like I'm living now. I could sort of get a taste of it and gradually sort of make myself more accustomed to kind of living this sort of a lifestyle. Go out and be a vagabond for a weekend and come back. And if you like it, do it again. And if you still like it, you know, do it for a little bit longer. Do it, you know, go out for 4 days next time. Go out for a week and talk to me. Like, ask me questions in the comments. If you have any questions, you get jammed up. Please ask me a question. You know, there's a lot of people that helped me out on the way when I started. People like Scooter Champ Scotty, Joe Sparrow, Chip Parisi, Mike McCone, and so many more. There's too many people to even name. But do it. There's a lot of information in these videos that I've put out that I've kind of picked up in traveling through the majority of Mexico and the United States. All that information is useless unless you do it and you go out and you experience it for yourself. So I hope I was able to sort of address some of the frequently asked questions that you guys have. If you have any other questions about anything, please hit me up in the comments below. I'm going to go ahead and start getting ready to hit the road and leave my little spot by this lake over here. So in summing up, I just want to say thank you guys so much for all the support. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking. Thank you for donating. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for contributing. I hope that this video will give you the inspiration to whatever your dreams are, to go ahead and pursue those dreams. With that being said, just thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the road.